because I just saw. Check, check. Good morning, ladies. It is so good to be back, isn't it? And it's great to see you. I sometimes when we have that week off, I don't know, my heart just kind of goes, I can't wait to get back and see you all and to be with my group again. Does everyone else resonate with that? Have you missed our ladies? Yes, I know. And that's a good thing, isn't it? Isn't it a joy to actually feel that miss, to kind of feel that that's a sadness, that's a good sadness, right? That's a longing. So, good morning. I'm Sue Duncan. I just have a couple of announcements for us before we introduce our guest speaker. I'm so excited to share. Our Christmas Women's Gathering is only a few weeks away. Can you believe it? Christmas is right around the corner. So what better way to gather, to hear the Christmas story, to be with your friends, and ladies, to meet 5 amazing women whose lives, our theme is Changed by Hope. You're going to get to meet them, part of our grassroots ministry, hear their stories, and to hear what's happening, what God is doing in our community. It's a great time to also invite your friends, to give them a postcard, to just tell them about it, see if they'd like to join you, to hear some amazing things that are happening in our community. The tickets, you register online. And we have an early bird special, so be sure to get them soon this week to take advantage of that, $20. And a portion of our proceeds will go to bless our 5 grassroots ministries, which we're excited to say. Ages 13 and up would probably be a good age to bring to the event, to the gathering. Let's see if anything else. So grab some postcards. Those are a wonderful way to share and to say, hey, would you like to join me? Let's see. Your confirmation when you register online, your email confirmation will be your ticket to come. So that's another piece of it. One quick thing, we still have a need for about 5 more greeters at just the very beginning of the gathering to welcome people. It's just to have that nice warm smile when you all walk in and when others walk in. So if you can volunteer, it's just for the beginning, and then you'll be free for the rest of it to enjoy with your guests or your friends that you'll meet here. So either let me know or let Karen know, right? Let Karen know. Yes, today if you will, that would be great. So next week, again, no Bible study. It is Thanksgiving week. Again, I can't believe how quickly time has passed. So there is nothing next week. So, and then Cheryl will be back the following week, and we'll end with our lesson 7 on November 27th. Cheryl is traveling this week at North Point to visit with the women's pastor and staff there around multi-site campuses. So we'll look forward to hearing what she gets to bring back to share. But for today, very excited to a familiar face, Jocelyn Peirce, why don't you come up, is going to bring God's message to us today. Yay! Jocelyn, if you didn't know, was with Grace Chapel for several years, and she's moved on to a new church position as Director of Family Ministry in Hopkinton. And so we're really, really excited to have you here. Yes, okay.
Good morning. I'm excited to be here. I saw Cheryl this summer, and I said, Cheryl, can I still come and hang out with your Joy people? And she was like, okay, I was going to ask, but I didn't know if you would want to come. So here I am, and I'm grateful to be with you, grateful that you extended the invitation to me. I met someone from Saddleback Church, and he said their staff is like Saddleback Mafia. Once you've been part of it, you never get out. So kind of feel like that's a little bit of the Grace Chapel thing. I still consider you all family, so glad to come and talk about a real upper today. Sounds like you've had a whole fall of good times here. Yeah? Well, I don't know if I'm the best person or the worst person to talk about sad because I'm comfortable with this. I'm not great at parties. I'm the one who brings up like the war in Yemen over the shrimp cocktail. But I think that there's a lot for us to consider here. And because it's a little bit of a heavier subject, we're going to start with the Gilmore Girls, who have much to teach us about handling complex emotions. So if you are not familiar with the show Gilmore Girls, it's about a mother and a daughter. The mother is Lorelai, and the daughter is Rory. She's 16, and in this clip, Rory has gone through her first heartbreak, her first breakup, and her mother and she are talking about how to handle her complex feelings of heartbreak. So let's take a look.
Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I am. Just one quick sec. Why don't you, could you put the pen down?
Just finishing the list.
Yes, I see. And as much as I love your list, let's just, finish this particular one in a little while, okay?
Okay.
Rory, I'm concerned about you. I wish you would talk to me.
I don't want to deal with it right now. I can't deal with it right now.
Fair enough. But listen, I've had my heart broken before. It's really hard. It's hard for everyone. So can I give you a little advice?
Okay.
I think what you really need to do today is wallow.
Wallow?
Oh, yeah. Get back in your pajamas, go to bed, eat nothing but gallons of ice cream and tons of pizza. Don't take a shower or shave your legs or put on any kind of makeup at all. And just sit in the dark and watch a really sad movie and have a good long cry and just wallow. You need to wallow.
No.
Rory, your first love is intense. And your first breakup even more intense. Shoving it away and ignoring it while you make lists it's not going to help.
I don't want to wallow.
Try it for one day.
No.
One day of pizza and pajamas. I'll rent Love Story and The Champ and Affair to Remember, Ishtar.
I don't want to be that kind of girl.
The kind of girl who watches Ishtar?
The kind of girl who just falls apart because she doesn't have a boyfriend.
That description hardly applies to you.
It will if I wallow.
Not true.
So, I used to have a boyfriend, and now I don't. Okay, that's just the way it is. I mean, sitting in the dark eating junk food and not shaving my legs isn't going to change that, is it?
No.
Okay, so I don't even want to go there. I have things to do. I have school and Harvard to think about.
Honey, Harvard's like 3 years away.
But now is the time to be preparing for it. I mean, Harvard is hard to get into. And I don't know why I even spend my time thinking about anything else.
Because you have a pulse and you are not the president of the Audiovisual Club.
I'm 16. I have the rest of my life to have a boyfriend. I should be keeping my eye on the prize right now.
I admire your attitude.
Thank you.
So, should we rent Old Yeller too, or is that just a guys crying movie?
You're not listening to me.
I am listening to you. I don't agree with you.
I don't want to wallow, and you can't make me.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
So that must be the list.
Yes, it is.
May I see it, please? We do not need a garden hose.
We don't have one.
We don't have a garden either.
But maybe if we have a hose, we can grow one.
Okay, see the pen for that?
Why?
Small adjustment, small adjustment.
Mom?
What? It's on the list. Don't you have to do it if it's on the list?
I am not going to wallow.
But I put it after going to the recycling center.
We can see here in this clip, they kind of dramatize those two extreme responses to our sadness, right? On the one hand, it's like, I don't have feelings. That didn't matter to me. That doesn't mean anything to me. Move on. I'm starting a garden. Life goes on. We're okay. We're okay. Or Lorelai, maybe you resonate more with her keeping like emergency sweats and chocolate on hand for the moment when it all falls apart. You never know. And many of us, you know, even if you tend towards one extreme or the other typically, a lot of us ping pong between those two, right? Our avoidance fuels our drowning, which fuels our avoidance. We're afraid to acknowledge our emotions because we're afraid we'll never get out of it. And that's the cycle that keeps us stuck in our sadness. Because if we're honest, many of us have a really complicated relationship with our sadness, especially as Christians, right? It's like, I can't be sad. I'm not sad. I have the joy of the Lord. I have faith. If I'm sad, doesn't that undermine my witness that God always comes through and there's new mercies every morning? Well, I don't have it as bad as they do. I'm not grateful for what I do have, right? There's a whole internal dialogue that happens with ourselves around sadness. We can view it as a negative emotion, and even some of you right now are like, these questions are uncomfortable. Let's vacuum. And there has to be a space. There must be a space somewhere between these vacillating, opposing extremes, a space in the middle that we could carve out for ourselves called sacred sad, a sad that's okay. And why would Paul, I think there's scriptural evidence for this, why would Paul tell us to mourn with those who mourn if it's not okay to be sad? He does not say to encourage those who mourn. He does not say to comfort those who mourn. He says, weep with your friends when they weep. Paul writes in Romans 8, you'll see it up on the screen, about a deep groaning that's taking place all throughout creation. Paul writes, we know that the whole creation has been groaning, as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. Not only so, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption to sonship, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we were saved. But hope that is seen is no hope at all. Who hopes for what they already have? But if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait for it patiently. And in the same way, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. And he who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for God's people in accordance with the will of God. And I hear in that passage this threefold groaning that's happening. Creation groans. We as people groan for our adoption and our redemption. And then the Spirit groans inside us. There's this like a resonant groaning that's happening throughout creation. This our inarticulate outward breath squeezed out of us by the sheer weight of burden. It's a really visceral expression that something just isn't right. This groaning says that something just isn't right. When relationships disappoint me, when I feel fractured, when I paid extra for the guacamole in my Chipotle, and they forgot to put it in, that was $2.95. When I see news about people suffering around the globe, pictures of children in Yemen, I told you I bring up Yemen. It's really on my heart. I'm a person who's like pretty in touch with my feelings and have been told that I have a way of putting language to abstract emotional concepts, and even I sometimes am just like, it's just sad. I'm just sad about it. I don't have anything else to say. Even those words sometimes feel like too much. Sometimes there are no words to describe how I feel, not just how I feel, but what I'm longing for, a yearning that's happening within me, and all I can do is groan. You been there? Yeah. I had my first baby in April. Oh, thank you. I know, I've only been gone like 18 months. A lot can happen in a year. She's 7 months old now. She's really cute. She's in the back with my mom. And we're kind of settling into normal life. But, but before all of that, my husband Matt and I, we were in our own season of sad. As we entered into the second trimester of pregnancy, we realized something was going on, something weird was going on. So at 14 weeks, we got some strange test results, need more testing. At 17 weeks, our local OBGYN referred us to the maternal fetal medicine at Beth Israel. And then at 21 weeks, they said, I'm sorry, it doesn't look good, but you just have to wait and see. By the way, Merry Christmas. We'll see you January 2nd. Yeah, really. By the way, we think it's a girl. Well, here's the thing. I already knew it was a girl because when I was 6 weeks pregnant, I was really scared. And I would just kind of pray in the night, you know, that's when it all hits you. And I would just pray. And out of the darkness, a voice came to my mind and said, it's okay. I know you're scared, and it's going to be okay. And when you're scared, you hold on to her name, Eleanor Joy. So I already knew it was a girl. And while God was merciful to give me this glimpse into the future, the next 31 weeks were tough. Specifically, the 23 weeks of bi-weekly appointments, and then weekly appointments, and then twice weekly appointments. It is by far the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life. And I won't say I couldn't get out of bed in the morning, but I did not want to get out of bed in the morning. It was hard to pray. And to be honest, I'm not sure that you could even call what I did praying. I think you might have to categorize it under inarticulate, wordless gasps, groans of breath through tears. And yet that space was sacred because the Spirit of God groaned with me, in me, for me. So it's a salient metaphor for me in Romans 8 when Paul writes about creation groaning like she's in childbirth. And if creation is groaning like she's in childbirth, that means she's pregnant. So what is she pregnant with? And I think that as we read this text, the best answer I can come up with is that creation is pregnant with hope. That at the beginning, creation was created perfectly and then fell into bondage to decay. And that moment of bondage was also the conception point of hope. And hope has been gestating this whole time in creation through all of us. Creation's pains of childbirth are the longing of our redemption through our adoption. So we kind of have both metaphors here. It's really beautiful. And so hope runs through all of those different things in our lives, right? Some of us might be feeling like, well, I don't really have anything like that. Like, that sounds really bad. It was bad. But also, there's just the daily grind, the daily corrosion of like, this is not the way it's supposed to be. My mobile order of Starbucks was supposed to go to the usual place, and it didn't, and now it's not there. And I don't have my Starbucks, right? We have all of these different, spectrum of tragedy. And so this is a question that's been forming in me that I've sought to live into in the last year is, how do I make space for that sacred sad and yet also move towards hope? How do I not get stuck in this cycle of avoidance and drowning, this orbit, right, with the gravitational pull of sadness that doesn't really take us anywhere or accomplish anything, but move into hope? How do I recognize the groaning of creation, of myself, of God's Spirit in me, and yet still acknowledge a hope for the future that says something good is still brewing under all of this at the same time? Shortly after that doctor's appointment where they just had the worst news yet, I went home, and like a good millennial, I tried to drown my sorrows with Instagram. And I saw a post by a woman who I follow named Meredith Turing, and I don't know her personally, she runs an orphanage in China, and she's American, she runs an orphanage in China, and they take in babies and young children with heart defects. And she ends up with some of the most complex cases just because of the nature of her work. They're babies that everyone else has given up on, and she's their last hope. Really incredible stories. She has taught me a lot from a distance about bravery. Her orphanage, she calls it the Little House of Brave. And the bravery that it takes to believe in hope, even in the midst of loss and grief and fear. And so right around the same time, one of the babies at her home had passed away, despite, really rallying around her with medical care. And after they lost that baby, they got word that the hospital was ready to operate on another one of the children. And here are some of her words about what it means to choose hope in the midst of loss. She says, "We've been walking through grief in a million different ways, and the only way through is to just keep walking. We got news today that another little one of ours is ready for her heart surgery. The question asked, how soon can papers be signed? Her heart might be ready, but I'm working on mine. How do you carry life into an ICU? The same ICU doors that you so recently walked out, cradling death in your arms." And here's her answer. And these are words that I carried with me for the next 4 months. Hope costs. It takes pieces of your heart, your time, your funds. Sometimes hope hurts, but hope is always a choice, and it is always worth the cost. Hope means you care. Sad means you care. And in a culture where it's cool not to care, it's cool to be disengaged and act like nothing matters, hope is a really brave choice. And our hope is for redemption, that things would be made right and that life would win, even when it seems like the dark is winning. And not just a naive hope, like a blind optimism, but as Jürgen Moltmann would say it, a hope for the future, that our hope is rooted in a resurrection hope. And so it has teeth. It has a little bite behind it. N.T. Wright says, "People who believe in the resurrection, in God making a whole new world in which everything will be set right at last, those people are unstoppably motivated to work for that new world in the present." So hope is not just a belief. Hope is a behavior rooted in action. Despite our circumstances, hope moves us. Hope is the generator that gets us unstuck. Hope is the engine that drives us into something new and different. Hope is the thing that put a little fire in my belly and a little fight back in my spirit and got me out of bed in the morning, even if only for 5 minutes. Hope moved Lucy McBath. Maybe you heard her story. Her son was murdered 6 years ago. She just won her first congressional race in Georgia. Hope moves Syrian Christian mothers who are living in caves in the midst of a civil war. They're dodging sniper bullets to get bread for their children. And when Christian leaders come to them and say, "What do you need?" they say, "We need evangelism training because our Muslim neighbors are ripe for the gospel because of our suffering." The words of Jesus are needed here. Hope moves my friend Ingrid, whose son has severe autism. He has a really hard time integrating into normal kind of youth group activities. And so she has fought tirelessly for years, despite being asked uninvited from participating in churches. She has fought that they would be part of a church family. Hope has moved her into something better in the belief that life will win. So, where are you stuck in your sad? Do you need to acknowledge that your sad is okay? You're not okay. Maybe you need to acknowledge that. It matters. And there is space in your sacred sad. Do you need to recognize or invite the Spirit of God into that place with you, to recognize that it's holy? Or do you need to move from your sacred sad to a hope that works for a new world that is already taking hold at our present time? So we're going to watch this video from Jenny Allen, and I really hope that these questions and thoughts create a space for you to have meaningful conversation this morning. Can I pray before we go to the video? Lord, I feel this presence in here as all of our minds go to the hard things that we've experienced. We invite you into that place. We ask for courage to be honest about those things with one another. We ask for your presence and healing to take root in us. And we ask that you would give us ears and eyes for the groaning that you are doing within us as you intercede on our behalf to God the Father. Would you bring your healing here? In Jesus' name, amen.
I'm like 2 days old, and my mom looks so young. When my dad turned 50, my grandma put together this book for him. It was a book celebrating his life. The first picture was the day he was born, and the last picture in the book was the day he turned 50. I was around 20 at the time, and I walked into the living room, and I remember the first time I saw it was sitting on the coffee table. And it felt weighty for a book, but it also felt really small for a life. Pictures are funny things. I mean, they're just catching a glimpse, just the surface of a moment. They're not really capturing the moment. Everybody's smiling and happy, and there's no idea what's behind it. Even if we had journals and diaries about all these minutes, it still would just be glimpses. It would still just be partial expressions of life. Zach and I, he's been in ministry for a long time, and we played this role in people's lives. It's like we get to see behind the Christmas card pictures and Facebook updates, and we get to see the real life of people, their souls. One time, a couple came over. They were such a cute couple. They'd been coming to church. I'd seen their faces many times. We'd smiled in the hallway at each other. Even said, "How are you doing?" And they'd said, "Great." And they're sitting on our couches to share something with us. They can't even sit close to each other. They can't look at each other in the eyes. Their marriage is falling apart. Their world is falling apart. See, we've seen behind so many curtains, and I know I've become cynical enough to know that people are hurting behind these pictures. People's lives are falling apart. I wake up, even on a good day, and I still feel this subtle, dull ache in my soul, like something's off, like something's wrong. I feel it. I don't think I'm alone in that. I think we all feel it. Feels like something's wrong. Looking at these pictures, I don't remember feeling that ache in childhood. I know it was there by high school, though. There's graduation. I remember feeling it that day. Romans 8 is my favorite passage in Scripture. Paul describes it, and he gives definition to it. He does all these things in Romans 8. He describes God and this planet and heaven that's coming, and he says this in verse 18. He says, "I consider that the sufferings of this present time, the aches, the pain, the sadness, everything that hurts, that all of that isn't even worth comparing to the glory that is ahead for those of us that know God. It's not even worth comparing." And it says that creation even groans and longs for God to come back. And then he says, but not only creation, but we ourselves, those of us who have tasted God, that have the first fruits of the Spirit in us, those of us that know God and we've tasted him, We groan because something's missing, because God is missing, because we're not home yet. Things in our soul, they hurt. In John 16:33, Jesus states it this way. He says, in this world, you're gonna have trouble. He sets the bar at trouble. He says, this is gonna be hard. This is gonna be a mess. And then he says, but take heart, I've overcome it. I have a plan and it's coming. It's just not now, so hope in it. Believe in it, it's coming. But we don't live like we believe that. We live trying to make this life work, trying to fix it, trying to patch up every problem we have and make it go away. We spend all our money and our time and energy just trying to fix it and make it happy. God says, I've overcome this planet. It's just, you don't see it yet. It's coming. It's just not now. When we got pregnant with our first, I don't think I had any idea. I know I had no idea what it would feel like until he came out. And that moment, I mean, it's cliche almost. You hear it so often, but it's true. If you don't have kids yet, there's something about your life, your paradigm that radically shifts the moment they put that baby in your arms. Everything was different. My purpose, what I was doing here, it just, everything shifted. He goes on in Romans 8, and he says something that I just think is so important, especially right now if you're one of those people that is just hurting, that your world's falling apart. He says, who or what could ever separate us from the love of Christ? This picture of me holding my two babies. You know, I didn't understand God's love till I had kids. It was so much deeper, so much bigger, so much richer, because nothing could tear those kids out of my arms or my love for them away from me. Nothing. I don't care how bad they are, how rebellious, how much they screw up. Nothing could tear them away from me and the way that I feel about them. It says, shall tribulation or distress or persecution or all the crud that we're going through on this planet pull us away from God? No, there's no way. For I am sure that nothing in this life or death or angels or rulers, not present things, not things to come, nothing can separate us from the love of God. It's not just in the future. It's not just in heaven when we get there. It's now. He is our God now, and he loves us now. He's with us. He's comforting us. And we've got to get over this idea that life is just supposed to be happy. We're missing God. We're missing so much because we're trying to build happy lives. He's just saying, guys, it's gonna go fast. It's going fast. I feel it. Life is going fast. My kids are growing up fast. He says, just run the race, run your guts out, and get out of here and come home.
ladies. Hello.
Hi, hi, hello, don't leave yet. Okay, so there is a car outside that have their lights on, and it is a white X5, Massachusetts plate 621 LA5. Your lights are on? Okay,